Jedd Fisch is the new head coach at Washington. Of course, Kalen DeBoer moved to Alabama, took Ryan Grubb with him. I believe he took the wide receivers coach with them as well. So Jedd Fisch is coming in. He could keep some guys. He could rehire or hire some new guys. We'll see kind of what goes down there. I got to be honest, Justin, this was not like my favorite hire when I first heard about it. I've known about Jedd Fisch, but the more I dig into it, the more I look into it, I really like this hire. I think this was a good hire by Washington. Heard of some other possible candidates, and I think I like this hire, and I think it's a good one. What are your thoughts?
So, for me, the argument about, for and against the hire. Okay. So looking at it depends on how you look at it, I think. So based on how quickly things unfolded with DeBoer to Bama, and they had a 2-day turnaround to make this hire, I think they did excellent, just based on that. Now, looking at Jedd Fisch as a coach, right? And there's a lot to like there. Again, look at that Arizona team he turned around. I mean, they were horrendous. I live in Arizona, so, I follow the Arizona teams a little closer than most. That team was really bad. And so I think it depends on the criteria. He does have Big Ten coaching experience when he's OC of Michigan for a couple of years, but the pros, of course, are that the Big Ten experience, and then the turnaround that he had at Arizona 2021, took them last year. I think they finished 11th in the poll, and had a bowl win against Oklahoma. So the only downsides there, or the biggest downsides, is he's never stayed anywhere for an extended period of time. Like, just brushing over, his Wikipedia page and look at the places he's been. 14 different jobs and since 2000.
Never been anywhere for longer than 3 years.
I saw that stat somewhere, and I was like, and then I looked at the Wikipedia, and it's just job after job after job. So, and one of the biggest things that I, before I saw that, because I saw that earlier, but just one of the biggest sticking points about Jedd Fisch that when I first heard about the hire is just no sustained success anywhere yet. And that's the one drawback. It's like, yes, you can come in and you can do a quick turnaround, but look at Frost with UCF, and then look at what he did at Nebraska, with Matt Rule. Matt Rule has experience turning around multiple programs, and Jedd Fisch has been good at a lot of places, but I just want to see it for longer, and just curious to how that turns out. But I would say just overall, it's a based on the circumstances they were in and the position they were in, I think it's a really good hire based on that, the circumstances.
Yeah, and I think we have to also recognize, the expectations for Washington. Washington did make the national championship, but Washington is not a premier job in college football. And that's no fault to Washington. A lot of that is just location, right? I mean, when you're recruiting, one of the reasons why Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss, these type of schools are going to be considered such good jobs is because there is so much good talent down there. However, I do think that what we're seeing nowadays is a lot of that is not so much the case as it used to be. And many people will tell me, oh, well, John, the only reason we have 6-year, 7-year guys is because of COVID. And yes, to a certain extent, you are correct. But I also think that a lot of these schools are going to be able to pay their players to keep them. I don't mean to make this an Ohio State show or anything like that, but I do want to bring them up as an example, because what Ohio State has done this season is they've used NIL in a way that we've not really seen to the level that they're doing it, right? We've seen that people do it this way, but not to this level, to where Ohio State essentially said, we're going to throw all our NIL at all of these players to come back. I mean, the only two players that left Ohio State were Marvin Harrison Jr. and Mike Hall, the starting defensive tackle and the starting wide receiver, who, is probably going to be a top 5 pick.
Yep.
And so what we've seen here is this kind of new realization that NIL isn't just used to get these new recruits there, but you can also bring in really good players and possibly tell them, hey, dude, you're going to be a 6th round pick. Why not come back and try to be a 5th round pick? Why not come back and try to be a 4th round pick? This isn't a situation where, Michigan just basically showed us the blueprint, right? I mean, they have all these guys leaving, and one of the reasons they do is because a lot of these guys are just out of eligibility.
Yep.
And so for me, it's like, Michigan showed the blueprint. Ohio State's doing it now, and I think other teams are going to catch on really fast. So we've got John here. I'm going to bring him in as well.
Hey guys.
Hey John.
What's going on, John?
I had just mentioned Michigan, and I think that you heard that and you came in right at that time.
Absolutely. Anytime Michigan's mentioned, there I am. No, we just wrapped the Michigan live show and just hopped right over here and wanted to thank you for having me on and excited to chop up Big Ten.
For sure. Yeah, we're going to get into Michigan in just a minute. We're talking the Washington hire right now, and I was just talking about the program of Washington and how Washington, even though in the past it's not been seen as a great program because of location, your Wolverines just showed us you don't have to be a hotbed for recruiting to be a good program to make it to the national to win the national championship, right? Washington made it there as well. And so I would love to get your perspective on that, John. Jedd Fisch is coming in here. Do we see Washington as a top tier program that hires, or is this kind of like a program where it's like, yes, this is a good hire, but they're still growing off of this national championship visit? What are your thoughts?
So Washington is a program, I don't think it's been like one of those perennial powers. They had some successful years in the 90s, obviously national champion the year of my birth, 91. So that was great. And other than that, I mean, they've kind of been up and down. They had some decent years, with previous coaches, had some rough years with Lake, and then they bring in DeBoer, and I thought it was a great hire at the time. And within 2 years, they take it from a 4-8 program, a dumpster fire program, to the national championship. And he was able to do that. But Washington, it's tough. It's they don't exactly have you'd think they have all this support with NIL, and they do have a lot of money in the area, and they do have donors that donate to the school, the university. But it seems like their NIL isn't what it could be. Seems like Oregon kind of has them a little bit when it comes to that. You've got the Nike money and everything like that. So I'd say they're an emerging program. I think you could safely put them in an emerging program. And I think the Jedd Fisch hire was probably the best hire they could possibly ask for. I was going to say, if for any reason Jim Harbaugh goes to the NFL and Sharon Moore gets like a year suspension or whatever, and they can't hire him as the head coach, Jedd Fisch was on my very short list, along with Kalen DeBoer, of outside hires. So Washington nailed it with this hire. He obviously showed he could turn around Arizona, and he was a big part of the reason that the early Michigan offense years were successful, because the second he left, and we all saw it in the Amazon documentary All or Nothing, and that year it was nothing, 2017 with John O'Korn, and you saw what Pep Hamilton and Drevno could do, and you realized that Jedd Fisch was doing a lot for that offense. So I think Washington nailed it with this, and I think they did a good hire.
So would you say A+ then? Is that kind of the grade you would give on it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if A+ was like Kirby, then right. I would say
I think you have to.
I can't go A+.
You can't go A+. I would think you have to kind of, like we talked about, what is the program and what can they hire? Obviously, Washington's not going to hire Kirby Smart.
That's and so go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll give.
No, I was just going to say. Well, obviously they can't hire Kirby Smart, so you have to think through, like, of the candidates they could hire, who was the best, and
true.
Did they hire the best one? Your thoughts, Justin?
Yeah. So, and I do agree with that. Right. I think this was, like I said, with the 2-day turnaround, this was an excellent hire. I think it just depends on how we're grading it, because on the surface, right? Are we grading this as, if we're grading it right now, just based on the situation, I think you can give it a solid A+, but are we grading it as how we project this to work for the future of Washington? And in that case, I think that varies tremendously on the expectations of Washington. Like, they made the national championship this year, but going into next year, it can't be every year's national championship expectations, especially with the churn and turnover on this roster. So what are we calculating moving forward as success for them, and what are the expectations for them? I think maybe on the surface, yeah, I could agree just based on the situation, A+. Moving forward, just in the long term, I would say probably I'd give it maybe like a B minus to start. It's got to start as almost an incomplete grade, but just based on that, I would say based on his experience and the fact that he does have Big Ten, experience and West Coast ties and all of that, I would say B minus. But yeah, I agree with the way John D'Adamo, the way you graded it. I would say A+ based on that, and that's kind of the first thing I said. It was an excellent hire based on the surface, but long term, I would give it a B minus right now. I think it's fair.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit higher than you, Justin. I would give it a B+. And one of the reasons why I'm not willing to go into the age range is kind of like the A range is kind of like what we discussed earlier. He's not been at a job longer than 3 years. John kind of hit it on the head. Hey, if we need somebody to come in for a year or two and then wants to bolt or something like that, here we go. This is the guy. Because that's kind of been his MO, right? He's been a head coach at Arizona. I think he was an interim at UCLA for like a bowl game or something like that.
But he went 1-1 there.
Yeah, 1-1 there. He lost the bowl game, but he won the final game of the season.
Yep.
But this is a situation where it's like Washington's getting into the Big Ten. They're not making that full money yet. Even if he is only there for, say, 3-4 years, I don't know if it's the worst thing ever, because by that time they should be making that nice Big Ten money and be able to attract somebody even better than Jedd Fisch, if Jedd Fisch is going to be able to come in and keep this rolling. I'm not saying they go back to the national championship, but I would say consistent top 5 team in the Big Ten is kind of what you're looking for. Do you agree with that, John?
Yeah, I think it's tough. Like who is better? I guess that's kind of the angle I would take. Like, who could they have gotten better?
Yeah.
Right?
Nobody.
Reasonably.
Yeah. No, this was the best they could have done. Yeah.
Like within 2 days.
And
too.
so I grade based on that. Like, okay, if Kirby Smart was in play, okay, right? But he's not. And so who could they reasonably get back?
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at their previous coaches, that I think are happy doing media, and they don't want to, be doing this anymore. So Jedd Fisch seemed to be the guy.
Yep.
And so from that perspective, I kind of have to give the nod to him.
I think with that criteria, that's perfectly fair. I think it's just a little bit different criteria, which we all have a different take based on how we're grading and stuff like that. And I do prefer to grade these surface level just because, you can grade these all you want, but they don't ever pan out, the way they're graded to start. So,
all right. Thanks for listening to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out, get in the chat, let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.